So I was of course stalking you on social media because that's what I do as a job. And I love that. I was looking at your LinkedIn profile
Yeah.
and everything that you've been not only awarded with, but also the steps that it took to become like the person that you are now.
Yeah.
My stalking question will be: you're not from New York. You're from
Detroit,
um,
Detroit, Michigan.
Detroit. Oh, yes, right. Because I was also telling my classmate that she also went to the University of Michigan.
Okay.
So that's why I was connecting dots.
Yeah.
Um,
I went to Michigan State University. So University of Michigan is our rival. Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Michigan State, like with the black and not the black, with the blue
The
and the
green.
yellow and
University of Michigan is blue and yellow. Michigan State is green and white, the Spartans.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have to check if she went to, because I remember I have to check because like Michigan State and University of Michigan, so they're different.
Yeah.
So I was stalking you and I was seeing all the wonderful things. Especially like this is something that maybe I can relate to, that maybe like I wanted to ask because I relate because I'm really young and also really young.
Yeah.
Given the situation where we're sad that we're in the pandemic right now, given the
Yeah.
situation, of course, one of the first things that I want to ask you is what do you think and how would you describe is being an activist right now, especially in like 2022?
Yeah. Well, firstly, thank you for having me. I'm always honored when anyone wants to talk to me about my life. I don't think that I'm that interesting, but I do understand that I live boldly and I do live authentically in my truth. And apparently to some that is inspiring. So I never take that lightly. But I think my activism has obviously shifted, right? Because a lot, especially in the last 2 years, when I like to be grassroots, I like to be on the ground, I like to be in community, I like to see people, hug people. I'm an empath. I need that to survive. And then not being able to do that when that is how you get your word out, you get your word across. It was definitely something that I wrestled with. And then also living with bipolar disorder, and obviously depression, being alone in solitude really shook me to my core. And so it really forced me to do some internal cleansing and cleaning. And so right now I'm sort of getting back out into the community and making sure that I'm connecting with people. But even still, I'm still respecting boundaries. So it's different. We can't hug, right? We fist bump now. And I'm like, no, I'm a hugger. So, my activism has definitely shifted. But it is still in alignment with the way that I live my life, authentically, honestly, transparently. And it is now shifted to I'm getting Instagram messages from people that follow me or that people that, discovered me during quarantine and watching my past videos on YouTube. And so I'll get an Instagram message from someone saying, hey, like, you don't know me, but thank you. Like, I'm going through this. I even recently got a message from someone stating that they were newly positive and that, they just didn't know who to talk to and they found me. And so, they were reaching out to me to connect and just have a conversation. And so, I don't necessarily think it stopped. It just has taken on a different form now. Yeah.
No, I agree. And everything is mutated right now. Everything has changed so much, and we see so many good sides, which is like I'm getting to meet all these wonderful people remotely and without quarantine. I have no idea, like without COVID, I have no idea if this position would have ever been open to remote work. So I'm getting like we all take what resonates and leave what doesn't. On the other side, every interview that I do, more and more people are starting to come up with I miss my community, I miss my friends, I miss my chosen family, so I miss the people that I chose to become my family. So it has brought us closer and sometimes a little bit more distant, Do you
Yeah.
feel like one of the greatest challenge when working with advocating for your community and
Yeah.
becoming an activist has become distance in a way, has become the loneliness that we have endured?
I think 100%, but the caveat to that is that now our people are even more connected via social media. So yes, we may not be able to reach out and physically touch someone, but the connectedness of social media, it has honestly allowed for people to connect with people that they probably never would have connected with, had there not been a quarantine or had there not been COVID. You may, like a person may have seen me in a bar or something and knew what I did or watched one of my YouTube videos. They would have never come up to me in that bar and said, thank you for, advocating for us, or thank you for saying this about criminalization laws. They probably would have never done that. But now social media, um, is allowing them to actually have an outlet and to reach out to people in different ways. And I'm pretty sure that goes for even dating, right? Like, there's a reason why the influx of dating apps, the surgence of them are like, oh, because people want to be connected, but don't necessarily always have the words or the language. And so I think now people are really reaching out, like, an influencer, they're only a DM away, So I think that the loneliness is still a huge part of COVID and coming out of COVID, but the connectedness because of social media, I think is better than ever.
No,
Yeah.
I agree. As dangerous as social media can be,
Very
but it
dangerous.
definitely has some positive sides,
Yeah.
and it does brought us closer.
Yeah.
As you said, and I was also reading, you shared your status pretty young,
Yeah.
when starting to advocate and create a community that will support you,
Yeah.
and you could continue to inspire. Um, how would you describe? No, I have a better question than that. What
Okay.
would you suggest to the people who are maybe still hesitant or don't really know how to talk about their status or how
Yeah.
to reach out when times of when they want that connection. So when in times of loneliness
Yeah.
and fear, they would love to reach out and be connected.
Yeah. Well, when I was diagnosed at 21, I was infected at 19. So that was 2007. And there was no Instagram. There was Twitter, there was Facebook, but there it really wasn't prevalent social media around. And so I think what I did was I found my tribe, or I really tried to find people that knew about HIV and understood me as a Black, gay, queer man, but also they were aspirational for me in the sense that I wanted to be like them. Like they were thriving with HIV, right? They weren't just surviving with it. And so that was really scarce and that was rare back then because a lot of people were not talking about their diagnosis of, stigma. And so I think now for anyone that is struggling with disclosing, I think now there's so many more resources. There are Facebook support groups. They are, influencers that are now open about their status. You can DM them. I mean, I don't consider myself an influencer, but I am someone that people know that talks about HIV. So now they DM me and they can have a one-on-one conversation. And so I think it is easier to navigate disclosing your HIV status, but I still think that, it's not that easy for certain people. I think that, me disclosing my status in New York, where it's prevalent and it's, widely discussed, is completely different than someone disclosing their status in my hometown of Detroit, right? Where the stigma is rampant, it is pervasive. And so I think, as people like me, we have to be very mindful of how we, tell people or encourage people to live in their truth because it could be very deadly to even disclose. I mean, let's think about it. There are 35 states, in the United States that have HIV criminalization laws and statutes on the books still. So, it could be dangerous to disclose.
Mhm.
And so finding someone or some outlet that you feel safe enough to disclose, I think it's out there, but I still think that there is a disconnect in that way
Mhm.
because people are afraid and people do not want to be stigmatized, and they shouldn't be, but it's not talked about enough in all parts of the world.
I've been lucky enough to interview one of the founder um, of a nonprofit that works in rural areas of the, if I'm not wrong, of the South states. So in many southern states, I know that this, as you said, disclosing your status can be very as dangerous um, as many other privacy and like private status and private things. Um, of course, now we see a little bit of an improvement when it comes
Yeah,
to slowing down the stigma and how the stigma is like spreading around.
yeah,
But definitely we talked on this series on how like how big of a difference it is between states. There are like southern and there are more rural areas compared to cities
yes.
like New York and San Francisco and San Diego, where the communities may also be easier to reach.
So they're posters, they're commercials, they're navigators. There's even better insurance, health insurance, right? And I think, some people are just insurance, and the HIV public health world is so complex to navigate. And you can really get lost in it and give up. And I've seen that with a lot of, I used to be a treatment adherence counselor for a community-based organization in Washington, D.C. And I worked with newly diagnosed and treatment naive clients, consumers. And if I were not there to help them navigate this system, they would have given up and they would not be in care. They would not get the medication that they deserve and that they need. And then, they would not be virally suppressed. And so, it really is a system thing. And I think it should not be that difficult for someone to find adequate healthcare and support. But unfortunately, it is. And so until we really break down those systems, we will continue to have people that don't know how to navigate. And we will continue to have people seroconvert. And so, I think we are getting better with people being so open and so honest about it. And I think that, like, even with this, interview, this is going to help someone else. They're going to see me. They're going to see someone that looks like them. And sometimes that's kind of all you need to do is you just need to see someone that looks like you, that reaffirms to you that, like, oh, I can do this. Like, look at him, he's doing okay. And I'm not great all the time, but for the most part, I don't have an issue with disclosing my status to anyone because I'm confident in that. But I've also been living with HIV for 17 years. So, my journey is going to look a lot different than someone that was newly diagnosed within a year or two. And they should not expect to be where I am and, the way I communicated and talk about it when they're newly diagnosed. And I think sometimes that gets lost in the sauce. People see me and they say, oh, I want to be like that. But I'm like, you don't know those, private battles that I had to fight in order to get to this comfortable space of disclosing my status. So, yeah, sorry, that was a
Is
lot.
there? It was really interesting. I know, and it can be different for everyone. It is
Yeah,
different from everyone.
I agree.
Was there a specific made you want to be a valuable of reference?
Wait, you were breaking up a little bit. It might be mine. Would you say?
Was was there a specific input that made you to disclose your status and become a reliable point, like a public and reliable
You said,
public influence?
was there a specific moment?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes. So, okay. So I was living in Atlanta and I was diagnosed when I was living in Los Angeles. And so I relocated to Atlanta because, I had a really nasty drug habit as a result of a lot of childhood trauma, but also a diagnosis at the age of 21, infected at 19, of course, but I'm young. I don't know about HIV. I thought that I was the first person who I ever met with HIV. And so I didn't know what that looked like. And so after relocating to Atlanta, I really made up in my mind that I wanted to live. And I've always been a fighter just by nature. And so after deciding that I wanted to live, I found my tribe. And I found, I did some research. I looked online, and there was an organization called Aid Atlanta and a subsidiary called the Evolution Project. And it was run by Black gay men, young Black gay men. And that was the first time that I ever saw people openly talking about HIV. To me, it was so dirty, right? I mean, essentially, that's what I thought. And because my family was religious, and so anything that was not of God was dirty, and so that sort of was internalized in me. And so when I got to Atlanta and people were having discussions and panels, and then I saw this young guy, beautiful young Black guy, talking about like, hey, I have HIV. And I'm like, oh wow, like it is okay to talk about it. And so after that, I remember like having like a cocktail party at my apartment with some of my close friends. And because they knew that I was working at this, I was volunteering at this place. And since they knew that I had that they would all come to me and talk to me about their personal HIV battles, but they weren't talking to each other or to anybody else around it. And so that let me know like, okay, well, there's so much stigma and, so much pain behind disclosing. How do I blow the lid off of that and make it easier for people to have a conversation? And so I started doing my research, and I started talking to my friends, privately about their HIV status. And I started to compile their stories, and it literally turned into a book called Positively Beautiful. And the reason how I knew stigma was so bad is because I had about 10 guys originally. By the time the book went to print, there was only 2 guys left that wanted to publicly tell their stories. So I knew that we had an issue, because 10 guys were like, oh, I want to, they were giving me their interviews. They were telling me their stories. They're like, thank you for doing this. I would love to be in the book. But I don't think that they thought that I would like realize that it would like actually go to print. And so once they found out that it was actually going to print, they were like, no, I still don't want people to know. But the 2 people, were included. They were my friends. And then I also included myself. And so that book has literally taken me all over the country. And it's only like about 40, 50 pages, but it's a guide in a sense that, this isn't necessarily exactly what you have to do in terms of navigating HIV, but this is, you can reflect back on this or pick this up and have an idea of where to go and what to do. And so after that, literally, I just started to talk openly about it. After I disclosed to my mother, honestly, she was the only person that I cared about their opinion of my life. Once I disclosed to her, then who cares about the world? Like I literally stopped caring. And after that, like I just never shut up. I never shut up about it. Because who can judge me? I mean, even if my mother was not okay with it, I still would have written the book. Regardless, this is my life, this is my journey. And I always knew that like I am not alone, and that if I'm going through it and I know 10 other guys are going through it, imagine how many other Black, queer, gay folks are going through this. And it literally, it just unified me with my community even more, because they saw me as a resource. And that's all I've ever wanted to be, was just, a living, walking, breathing resource. That's it.
And like, it's not only sharing. I imagine the sensation and feeling when somebody comes up to you and says, thank you for doing this, thank you for speaking out, and like being the first person that maybe they rely on. I know it's so powerful. The way we connect with other human beings, we connect with friends, and is so powerful. And representation, because as you said, if I like me that can do it, that can struggle and thrive, that can have
Yeah.
problems, still be successful at their
Yeah.
terms. I think me feel like I can do,
Yeah.
I can,
Yeah.
to think that never talk too much.
But it also gets overwhelming sometimes because, like I said before, I am an empath. And so I feel everything. I literally feel everything. And so I'm also dealing with, a mental health disorder, but also I have the tools to help me. And so I am meeting these people that are newly diagnosed that don't have the tools. And so it's like a word vomit, or just they just dump it all on me. And I'm like, okay, it's my duty. I feel like it's my responsibility to assist them and to guide them and to help them and be, a resource for them. But it does get overwhelming because it's so many people coming to you and dumping on you. And that's not their intent. They just, they may have just found someone that's like, oh, they get me. I just want to tell them. But like, once you tell me, I feel responsible to make sure that you are good every step of the way. And that gets tiring, that like, I remember like people say, who saved Superman, right? Like, who does save Superman? And so I think what COVID and this whole experience has allowed me to do is sort of regroup, recalibrate, and really take some time for myself in solitude to really understand what my position is in this community, but also to shed some of that baggage, or some of that dumping that happens to me often in the community. And it's not their fault. Like, if you see Beyonce, like, I'm not comparing myself to Beyonce at all, but if you see Beyonce and you are and you love to dance and sing, when you see her, I love you so much, I've always wanted to dance. And Beyonce's like, she's internalizing that, but also that is a lot, because now someone is sort of putting you on this pedestal when you don't see yourself in that way. Like, I don't see myself as this sort of like person that's changing the world. It's just me literally speaking when I could be silent. Like, and I'm not, like, it's either this or death, right? Like, it's either me getting it out or me bottling it up and dying. And so, I love when people tell me that, they admire me, but I'm also like, I'm so human and so flawed, and don't get, the image that you see out there of me confused with who I really am. And I'm just a person trying to navigate, mental health disorders and an HIV diagnosis in a world where everyone would much rather me shut up. So it's a lot, but it is, if I were to die tomorrow, I would die knowing that I positively impacted the world. Like, positively, like, everything that I put out there from my perspective has been full of heart and courage. And I think that those are the things that one should want to be remembered for. It's like how you positively affected other people's lives. That's it.
That's great. It's true. Like,
That's it.
people remember how we make them feel. If we make them feel accepted in a safe
Yes.
space, welcomed.
Yeah.
Just to let you know, I'm virtually hugging you. Like, this is like how, like,
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm tearing up. It's like, I'm literally virtually hugging you. I can't wait to visit one day, please.
I
And like,
know. I would love it.
I really
When you
hope
do,
so.
please, whenever you
Well,
do, we will go out for coffee or whatever. And yes, I would love that.
I would love if, until Nora, if you're watching this interview, please let's organize someday like an event, even more than one, so we can connect. Because I have this huge privilege of meeting you and meeting all those wonderful people that are working in the community that I love, and it will be so great to finally meet you all in person. And I also because I'm also like, you're talking to me and I'm talking. Oh, he will love XYZ, he will love Monica, and he will love Peter, and there are so many people, because all the wonderful people that we have hosted on this series have left us with something even bigger than just one interview. It's like life lessons, and we have laughed together and we are cried together, and it's as wonderful as I know that I'm not alone when battling and when opening up to human things. We're human and we always forget that. When talking about mental health issues and physical issues, because like seems like the pandemic has made us realize we're not immortal, and all of us have different issues going on at the same time. So it's and this is like my signature question, so I have to ask you, and now I'm even more curious.
Okay.
Oh my god, because I have two, but I really want to choose one. Then I'm gonna ask them two both. The first one is, what is a quote or a saying that you live by?
Do your own thing on your own terms and get what you came here for. That's it. I do my own thing on my own terms, and I am here to get what I came here for. Not what my mother wants me to get, or what my friends think I should get, or what the world says that I should get or do. I'm here to live my truth and do my thing and get what I come for. And that literally has carried me forever. And it's so simple. And I forgot who even said it, but when I saw it, I'm like, that resonates with me. Like, I just want to do my own thing, and it's my life. Yeah. So that's it.
It's so great. And the second and last question is, I always happen to be a little bit younger than all the hosts, like on the other testimonials on our series. And so I'm asking you, if you met yourself of 23 years old, which is how old I am now, what would you tell him? What would you say?
Be kind to yourself. Give yourself some grace. It's all going to work out in the end. I was so hard on myself. Like, how could I get HIV? How could I do this to myself? How could I embarrass myself? And I was just so broken. And I would really like who I am today if I were 22. If I could see who I am today, I would really like him. I didn't really like myself at 22. So I went, yeah.
Let me close this interview before I start crying.
I know. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm literally virtually hugging you, and
thank you.
I hope to please stay in touch with us at Until. I'm gonna add you on all the social media that I can, so I can keep up with your wonderful, wonderful work. Thank you so much for everything that you've been doing.
Thank you for this.
And enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. I'll talk to you later.